Hello, my Charley Speaks family. I am excited today about coming to you with another parental responsibility. Thus far, I have spoken to you about the duty of parents to teach their children, to train them, to provide for them, and today we're going to talk about the responsibility to nurture our children. So let's go into the word, all right? Now, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, from the NIV, the New International Version, reads this way. It says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." And I'll read that to you from the New Living Translation as well. It says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Rather, bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord." So, why do you think the scriptures at this point are pointing to fathers in this regard? So let me just tell you a moment what's happening here. This is Ephesians chapter 6. And at this point, Paul is saying to the people at Ephesus, he's giving them instruction at this point regarding the family. And it starts off Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, have to do with instruction to the children. Let me see. Excuse me a moment. I did have that ready for you. Anyway, Ephesians chapter 6, children and parents. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 says, "Children, obey your parents." So he's talking to the children, and telling the children in verse 2 that they're to honor their parents, their father and mother. And it's the first commandment with a promise that says if they do so, they will have a long, good life. Then it goes on to verse 4. And now is talking to the fathers. And is saying to the fathers, "Fathers, don't provoke your children to anger. Don't do the kind of thing that annoys and irritates them on purpose." Fathers have to realize that, and parents have to realize that children are a gift from God. They're on loan to us. But the children really belong to God. They are a gift from Him to us. And He has instructions for how we are to care and maintain them. And so one of the things he's saying here as a parental responsibility, and he starts it off in a do not fashion. Do not, fathers, do not. You have the authority that's been delegated to you as a father, as parents, from God for taking care of His children. But with that authority comes responsibility. And He is holding fathers accountable for carrying these duties out in His way. So everybody has somebody over them. You are over your children, but God is over you. And so He's saying to you, and He points it out for His own reason, that you are not to provoke your children to anger. And so what does that mean? One commentary says, well, do not provoke your children to anger with unreasonable demands. Just because you have the authority to do that, or just because you're in the position, just because you have the control over your children, doesn't mean that you can treat them any way that you want. God has instructions there. So do not provoke your children to anger with unreasonable demands, with undue harshness, with constant nagging. As a father, I'm sure you have an idea what irritates and annoys and gets on their last nerve. And so do you really have to handle things that way? So God is saying, don't do that. As a matter of fact, Colossians 3:21 says it this way: Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. They will lose heart. God doesn't want his children to become discouraged because of how we treat them. Instead, he says, bring them up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. So God's instruction to fathers, to parents, is to bring those children up in his instructions, to do things his way, to do things according to the will of God that is made known in his word. So fathers are supposed to give their children tools that will help them to live each day in the present and prepare them for the future. And you might say, well, where does she come in? Where does the mother come in? Well, the mother is your helpmeet. And it is her job to do the part that you can't do, or do the part that you maybe do not do. Her job is to teach. But our Heavenly Father has provided instructions. Fathers, there is an authority that you have. And many of you are aware of that sometimes you can say something one time to a child, and that child will stop in their tracks and do it. And that mother can say it 15 times before they actually seem to get it. Well, there is an authority that has been delegated to you. And God is saying that it must be used properly. That just because you can demand doesn't mean that maybe you should demand. You have to think about things and do things the way that you think God would have you do them. Why? Because you are God's representative. He is the CEO, and you have been delegated the authority to bring his children up in him, to give them the tools that they need for success to the best of your ability. And your wife is your helpmeet to do the part that you are either unable to do or can't do at that time. You are a working team. You should be working together with one another in the training and the nurturing of those children. Now, I think you might like to have a young father's perspective from that as well. So stay tuned, because we will talk.